4-year-old Gus Lamont vanished from Oak Park Station on the evening of September 27th, and since that moment, the Outback has fallen under a cloud of confusion, heartbreak, and unanswered questions. No clothing, no trail, no sounds, just silence. What began as a routine afternoon on his grandparents' property has become one of South Australia's most haunting mysteries. Before we dive deeper, hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell to get first-hand updates on this developing story and other unsolved cases like it. Gus was last seen playing near a sandpit by his grandparents' homestead, surrounded by nothing but the vast, dry expanse of Oak Park Station, an unforgiving landscape that stretches miles in every direction. The terrain is rugged, scattered with patches of saltbush and red date, and temperatures can swing from blistering heat to chilling cold in just hours. For a child that small, the odds of survival in such conditions quickly dwindle with every passing minute. The initial search began immediately after the alarm was raised, but despite an intense community effort involving neighbors, station workers, and local volunteers, not a single sign of Gus was found. Days later, when hopes began to fade, the search was scaled up dramatically. 80 Army personnel joined state police to comb through a 5-kilometer radius, extending into areas that had previously been deemed too remote or dangerous. Helicopters hovered overhead. Drones scanned the landscape. Even heat-seeking equipment was deployed to detect any possible movement. But still, nothing. No piece of clothing. No dropped toy. No sign of a struggle. Just an eerie emptiness that seemed to swallow every clue. The remoteness of Oak Park has been both a shield and an obstacle. On one hand, it limits human traffic, meaning fewer suspects and less likelihood of abduction by a stranger. On the other hand, its vast, isolated nature makes searching nearly impossible. Every direction looks the same, and the harsh wind can erase footprints within hours. In those early days, one small trace offered a glimmer of hope, a single footprint, believed at first to match Gus's tiny boots. Investigators rushed to analyze it, comparing the pattern, depth, and size to shoes recovered from his home. For a moment, it seemed like the search had direction again. But after closer inspection, experts ruled it inconclusive. The soil was too loose, the print too faint. It could have belonged to Gus, or to anyone else who'd crossed the area earlier. As the days stretched into weeks, the tone of the investigation shifted. Authorities quietly transitioned from rescue to recovery, a heartbreaking acknowledgement that the likelihood of finding Gus alive had diminished. It was a devastating turn for his family, who continued to cling to the smallest flicker of hope. Wildlife explanations were quickly dismissed. Rangers and forensic teams found no signs of dingo activity, no drag marks, and no evidence of animal involvement. That left one possibility investigators could no longer ignore: human involvement. Detectives began to re-examine every detail of the family's movements that day. Who saw Gus last? What time did each family member arrive or leave the homestead? What happened in the minutes between his last sighting and the moment anyone realized he was gone? The final confirmed sighting came from his grandmother, Shannon Murray, who told police she last saw Gus around 5 p.m., happily playing in the sandpit. Not long after, she returned outside, and he was gone. There was no sound, no struggle, no visible trail leading away from the area. The boy's father, Joshua Lamont, wasn't at Oak Park that evening. He learned of his son's disappearance hours later when police reached out. By that time, darkness had set in, and the temperature had dropped sharply. Investigators quickly established that the window between the last sighting and the call to authorities was critical, and possibly where the key to the mystery lies. Police have since appealed to the small Yunta community and surrounding districts, urging residents to come forward with anything, no matter how insignificant it might seem. Dashcam footage, a passing vehicle, or even a fleeting observation could make the difference. Investigators emphasize that verified evidence is vital, as online speculation and rumor have only made the search more complicated. Social media chatter has flooded with unverified theories, but police insist that every minute spent chasing misinformation takes time away from the real investigation. At this stage, detectives are focusing on 5 specific zones: the sandpit where Gus was last seen, an outbuilding on the property, the meal timeline before his disappearance, a small reservoir nearby, and the stretch of scrubland just beyond the homestead perimeter. Each of these areas holds unanswered questions about where Gus might have wandered, who might have seen him, and whether any object or sign was overlooked in the early chaos. As the investigation deepens, one truth remains. The absence of evidence suggesting an animal attack or environmental cause leaves human involvement as the most likely explanation. Whether it was an accident, abduction, or something far more complex, investigators are determined to reconstruct that evening moment by moment. The family's communication gaps, particularly the hours before and after the disappearance, are now at the heart of the inquiry. In the end, the story of Gus Lamont is no longer just about a missing child. It's about persistence, precision, and the painful process of piecing together truth in a landscape that hides more than it reveals. Police continue to urge patience from the public and caution against speculation. Every search, every interview, every small discovery brings them one step closer to understanding what really happened on that September evening. Because somewhere in the silence of Oak Park, there's an answer waiting to be found.